That's a way I like to look at this, where the masculine option is not to be in control. The masculine option is to be calm. And you can only be calm when you're confident and you're competent and you know that you've got the tools to make everything okay, even when you hit bumps in the road. Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast. This is Charles. Okay, if you listened to our last episode, you know I came in hot with some skepticism about Mel Robbins and the let them theory, but credit where it's due, chapters 3 and 4 actually had me nodding along more than rolling my eyes. In this episode, Dan and I dig into what the book gets right about stress, emotional overreactions, and the illusion of control. We talk Stoicism without the macho cosplay, how masculinity shows up under pressure, and why being calm might be the most underrated power move a man can make. Takes a big man to admit he's wrong, and if I ever am, wrong or big, you'll hear it here first. Enjoy the episode. We listened to or read chapters 3 and 4, and in this one, we start to discuss stress and the stress response and what we can do about it. So she goes into the inherent presence of stress in all of our lives and how we just all have to deal with it and how most people are overstressed and not doing much about it.
And I think part of that too is she recognizes that a lot of it's little things. It's not like a big overwhelming thing on a day-to-day basis. It's like little things that are kind of adding up that kind of contribute to our own annoyance, which builds up our stress.
Yeah. Do you find that you deal with the little things bothering you that much? I mean, it was a little tough for me to identify with her being so affected by little stuff.
Not at this age. When I was younger,
agreed.
I absolutely could identify with waiting too long in the checkout line. Or when I first moved to Florida and the Publix employees having conversations with people instead of, it seems, I don't know, I think maybe they're better now because they are able to multitask and check them out while they're having the conversation. But I just remember they, like at the end, like waiting for payment, people were having like minute or two discussions. This was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on right now?
Yeah.
It really bothered me. So I could understand when she talked about going to Home Depot and the lady at the checkout line was taking her sweet time, scanning everything, then pausing, having a conversation with that person, and then continuing to check them out. If you remember in the book, she was talking about how a lot of times she has the tendency to turn to the person in line next to her and roll her eyes and just go, "Oh, can you believe what's going on?" But she paused and she realized she's going to let them, and she immediately brought down her stress level. So when I was younger, that stuff would bother me a lot more. As I've gotten older, I don't know if I've just got used to it, expected it. And so then when it doesn't happen, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It still happens to me in traffic though. Even though I try to tell myself, okay, this person, if I get cut off in traffic or if they're going really slow, maybe they heard something horrible happen to one of their loved ones. Maybe, whatever it is.
There's a 0.0001 chance it has anything to do with you, right?
And
that's the thing.
And also realizing I can't make a difference.
Right. I mean, stuff does bother me sometimes. I can't imagine it bothering me to the point where it ruins my day or I get where I'm going and I'm still obsessed over what happened at the store or what happened in traffic. That really doesn't really.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin my whole day.
In a moment, it can be like, oh, this is annoying. She talks about like, there's no magic wand you can wave to say, I'm never going to be exposed to those annoying circumstances again. That's just the idea of we need to soften up the world so I don't have to deal with difficult situations is never going to work.
You don't have control over that. Like that's the fundamental piece of this is that you control the controllables, and that's you and your reaction. She even quotes Epictetus about it's not what happens in the world, it's how you react to it.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought you'd like some of the Stoicism stuff that he threw out there.
The thing I found interesting about her, I mean, really this whole book is about Stoicism. It's just she's found a way to package it and sell it to new people who are new to Stoicism that feels valuable and resonates with them. But yeah, when she talks about people getting let them tattooed on their body, it's like, okay, so
that's hardcore.
That's a really cool let them tattoo.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining to me you never heard of Stoicism until Mel Robbins told you about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
A lot of people, I mean, that's the thing too, is, it's what, the world that you live in. You may not have heard of it or the concept. I think Mel also does provide it in an actionable way. So it's good to like a lot of those Stoicism quotes are great, but it's just like, well, then how do I live in a way where I'm controlling what's controllable? Like, give me an action plan. And I think that's one of the benefits of her is that she gives you those steps on how to do that.
Yeah, one of the things when I was preparing for this and trying to look at this through the lens of, okay, how does Stoicism in general or the let them theory relate to sort of masculine expectations and things like that? I find that when it comes to anything that references the application of masculinity or toxic masculinity, very often people will try to connect Stoicism to that, where it's like,
okay.
and I think this probably happens with men, where men have this attitude of, I need to be stoic, and they implement that in the way of, I need to suppress all emotions and any expression of emotion, and I'm going to think that's what Stoicism is. And I think the people who spend any time reading books on Stoicism, whether that's going back to Marcus Aurelius and reading Meditations, or Ryan Holiday and some of the books he's done, or Mel Robbins, it's like Stoicism is not, I'm going to shut down all my emotions and I'm going to address every situation as if I'm a robot.
Right.
I think when people talk about Stoicism that way, again, that's another way to show me a big flashing neon sign that says, I don't really know about Stoicism. I've not really read anything, any serious works on Stoicism. I just heard about Stoicism from somebody else who heard about Stoicism.
Yeah. It's not the art of not caring.
No, it's the art of not reacting in a way that's going to negatively hurt you and your future and the people around you. It's like, I'm not going to pretend like what's happening right now isn't affecting me. I'm just not going to knee-jerk react in a way that's going to make my life worse. That's what Stoicism's about. It's like, I'm not going to be so affected in the moment that I'm going to act out in ways that make every day from this day forward harder than it has to be.
Right. I look at it as mental toughness. That's what it is. It's managing. It's not ignoring. It's not resisting. It's feeling those feelings, knowing how to handle them, and then reacting in the way that you want to react, and not based on your amygdala that she talks about.
Exactly.
Or fight or flight response.
Even just committing to, I'm not going to react in the worst way possible. I mean, that's an implementation of Stoicism to say, listen, when this happens in the moment and I have this immediate impulse to do this terrible thing that's going to be bad on me, bad on the people around me, I'm going to just make the situation worse. I'm going to dial that extremely negative response just back a couple of notches. I mean, that's still a successful implementation of Stoicism. Even if it's not the most optimal, it's still something.
So do you have a method, a go-to to pause and create that space so that you aren't just letting your feelings
I've got a couple things I do
out all over the place without any kind of checks?
And from other books we've talked about, I think it was The Man's Guide to Women by the Gottmans, or I forget, is that the one?
Yeah, I think it was,
that was one of the things where they talk about just how, listen, if you're in the middle of any kind of a conflict to the point where your pulse is over 100 beats per minute, you're going to react in a way that is suboptimal. I mean, that's not the best way to react. It's just, you can't help it. I mean, if your physiology is that activated where your heart is beating at more than 100 beats per minute, your amygdala is in the driver's seat and you're just not going to have the best reaction. That's one of the things I thought about when she was going through chapters 3 and 4. We just have all this hardware that is not optimized for the level of real adversity that we deal with in modern society. Meaning, I thought about it like, say you're playing blackjack at a table where it is $1,000 a hand, and you don't have enough money to be sitting at a table where it's $1,000 a hand. You're going to be in a real state of distress because of what's at risk every time the dealer puts your cards out. But then you get moved from that $1,000 a hand table to a $5 a hand table, and you're still reacting as if there's $1,000 at hand at risk. That's what it's like to live in modern society.
Yeah.
Where
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
For most of us, we're not in a position where if the hunt doesn't go well, we're not going to eat tonight. We're not in a position where at any second, some roving band of outlaws is going to come into our subdivision and start stealing everything and killing everybody. And taking the women and children away. That's not going to happen for most of us in modern Western society. And so as a result, because we never have to deal with stuff like that, it's, hey, we got an email from our boss that says they want to talk before the end of the workday. And our body doesn't know that is not the same thing as the raiders coming in from the next village.
Yeah.
And so our body still reacts to that email as if the raiders are about to come into our subdivision from the next village over.
Yeah. Same thing when she said she was checking out at Home Depot with that slow cashier. She was late for something and it was probably work related. And our brain is going, oh, we're not going to be able to make the hunt. We're not going to be able to bring in the money. We can't survive. At least the amygdala goes to that.
Right.
Goes to that place.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a key step that a lot of us can take, is find a way to step outside and relax a little bit and reassess what reality is.
Right.
When you're in it, like you said, and you're stressed, it's very difficult to open up and really take a look at what all the real possibilities are when you're in it, because our fight or flight is basically in protective mode. And that's the last thing we're going to do, is open up in any capacity and make ourselves vulnerable. And even brain wise, to think and think creatively and to think what these other possibilities are is a difficult thing to do. And that's why coaches and mentors and therapists are all extremely valuable.
Yeah. And in the case of Mel being stuck in line at Home Depot or whatever, I mean, Mel Robbins has been Mel Robbins for quite a few years now. And so her ability to just shoot a text that says, hey, I got held up at the store, I'm going to be a few minutes late. Everybody's going to wait for Mel Robbins to be a few minutes late for whatever meeting she's got. Yeah. Nobody's going to be like, oh, well, we're not going to publish your next book now, Mel, and make all of us millionaires because you were a little late getting to the meeting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it goes to show that when we set our expectations, and she probably set her expectation that it wasn't going to take her 15 minutes to check out in line, and then the expectations are not met, that's when we a lot of times get those feelings of stress and strain and anxiety.
Right. Because we bring into it.
Doesn't happen.
I was expecting this to take 5 minutes, and now it's not taking 5 minutes. And the only thing at stake here is my expectation was wrong. Like, it's not affecting anything else other than, but I thought it was going to take this long, and now it's taking this long instead.
It's a change. It's crazy. That little thing. I know, it's so nuts the way we work.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, because again, all this hardware is like looking for patterns, looking for danger, looking for emergencies. And so since we're not finding emergencies, we have to create them.
Yeah.
Because that's just part of what it means to be a social primate.
And for me, the response that I've come up with is basically just take a belly breath, one deep breath, and that calms my physiology down. If that's not enough, and a lot of times it's not, I try to do something physical, like go for a walk, stand up, walk around the house, do something physical to get rid of the side effect of our amygdala going crazy, which is releasing all that cortisol and adrenaline. And that starts to make your body feel uncomfortable and uneasy. And it's a lot more difficult than to think clearly when that's all kind of built up. So doing anything physical a little bit, even, I mean, I'm not doing jumping jacks or anything, but just moving a little bit helps me change my state and clears me out and helps me take a step back. And then, all right, what's the appropriate response here? But if I can't move, a lot of times the belly breath, because it activates your vagus nerve, which is your calming part of your nervous system, right? The parasympathetic, that immediately, it's almost like a wave just kind of washes over me and helps me just relax for just a second. And that's sometimes enough time and space for me to engage the more modern part of my brain and think through something.
Yeah, it's interesting how in those moments, if we're not careful and if we don't have some sort of cognition that interrupts the loop, we can feel like the safest thing for me to do right now is to try to take control and micromanage the situation, when in so many of those cases, the level of control that would make us feel comfortable is not actually available to us. Like,
that's the key, right?
You think, oh, if I could just take control of the situation, but there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say that's going to give you the level of control that it would actually take for you to feel like you're comfortable.
And just like we were talking about your expectation when you're waiting online, same thing is your expectation now by taking control is, I'm going to be able to control something. And you're trying to control what you can't control. You're almost setting yourself up for disaster, a self-perpetuating loop here of negative feelings, because you're going to try to control something you can't. And then you're going to be disappointed because you can't control it. And now you feel even worse. And a lot of times that kind of just keeps spiraling. You try to control. So yeah, I think we need to kind of think of what other options besides trying to lock down and take control in that situation are available to us.
Yeah, she does a good job. I really liked what she talked about with the ABC loop.
Okay.
I think that was this chapter where she talks about an event happens, we assign meaning to that event, and then the reaction we have to the event is not really based on what the event objectively is. It's all based on the meaning that we've assigned to the event.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting, I've never heard it explained that way before, where yeah, you're not reacting to the thing that happened to you. You're reacting to the value and the meaning that you've assigned to the thing that happened to you.
Yep.
And so if we can figure out a way to break that loop where we can see what we're doing in the moment, and instead of reacting to the meaning we've ascribed to something, we can react to the thing that actually happened, then the odds that our reaction will be appropriate and effective skyrocket.
Yeah. Just being open to the possibility that's not the only option is what we're thinking about the situation.
Yes.
That is what's helpful for me, is realizing even though if I can't figure out or even believe something else of something else specific about that situation, just the fact that I know that objectively there has to be other ways of thinking about what happened, that already puts me at ease a little bit, going, okay, maybe you don't have all the information.
Right.
Maybe you're not objectively correct. Maybe this isn't 100% what reality is. That automatically goes, okay, that drops me down a little bit.
Yeah. And that's where just sort of the pop culture version of Stoicism can be a little bit of a tool that you can use in a situation like this, where if you stop and think, okay, if I knew everything there was to know about the situation and I could react to it with the emotion and passion of a Spock or a Data on Star Trek,
Okay.
what would I do differently from what I feel like I need to do right now? So if I had all the info and I was able to act on that information, just process it devoid of emotion,
Yeah.
what would that look like? And that's not necessarily what you should shoot for. That's not necessarily what the goal should be, but just doing the exercise of, okay, well, if I was able to do that and I was able to take all the information that I might not have access to and apply a dispassionate solution to it, what would that look like? And how different does that look like? Because listen, there are times when, whether, the way you're being treated by a friend or a family member, or you're confronted with some sort of a social injustice, there are times when reacting with anger or even rage is the appropriate response for you to take to something. I'm not saying that's never the right thing to do, but being able to just say, okay, if I had more information and if I took on the assignment of reacting dispassionately, what would that reaction look like? Compare that to what I feel like I have to do right now. And then ask yourself, is there something in the middle that would be the most effective way to respond to this? And the answer is almost always yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's one way that you can kind of role play as, okay, what would that ultimate version of Stoicism look like if it was in the driver's seat for coming up with my reaction instead of my amygdala? What would that look like?
Yeah.
And would that be a better outcome, or would that be a worse outcome? Would the happy medium between these two maybe make for the best outcome? And just being able to take a pause back and sort of look at it like you're up above yourself looking down can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And I've never had an experience where I've done that and I thought, man, I should have just had the knee-jerk reaction. I would have been so much happier if I just reacted instantly in the moment based on my emotional, passionate response.
Another way that I try to remember to do this, and I'm disappointed I don't remember enough, is what would you say to somebody else who came to you with this issue?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's so much, it's crazy how quickly you can come up with an answer when you think of it and you put yourself in that position versus when you're in it yourself and just feeling the feelings of being frustrated and hitting an obstacle and letting it get in your way. And when I'm lucky enough to remember, hey, what would I tell somebody else to do?
Right.
It's like, it comes to me immediately.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And in almost all of those scenarios, what I would tell the other person to do is you need to dial in and figure out what in this situation is inside your ability to control and what is not. And when when things are chaotic and when things are difficult, the worst thing you can do is spend your time banging your head against the wall trying to control things that you can't control, because then the opportunity cost is just too high. You're wasting your time trying to affect change that you cannot possibly affect. And so, yeah, step one has to almost always be, okay, here, I'm in this situation. What can I control versus what can't I control? And ask yourself, how am I wasting my time right now in this very moment trying to control things that I have no chance of controlling? And that's going to be other people. That's going to be external factors like traffic, like weather. I mean, you're not going to be able, no matter how much effort you put into it, you're not going to be able to control the traffic. You're not going to be able to control the weather. You're not going to be able to control the 9 people in line in front of you.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I mean, and that's why I like the fact that this isn't just a let them theory, it's a let me.
Exactly.
So it really kind of helps you understand you need to, in order to do the let me, you have to control what you can control. Because if you're trying to use let me and control other things that are out of your control, it's futile. So the other day you were telling me how you handled a work situation is you're hoping for the best, but you're planning for the worst.
Right.
And so you're doing the things that you let me work on things that would help you prepare for the worst case scenario.
Right.
And also recognizing that's something you need in order to feel better about the situation, because you've got that safety mechanism in place at this point.
Right. Yeah. There's what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What's the most likely scenario?
Yeah.
And the most likely scenario in most relationships, whether that's personal, professional, whatever, the most likely scenario for a given situation it's homeostasis. It's like things probably aren't going to change that much. People, for the most part, the people you deal with on a daily basis are not looking to upset the apple cart. They're looking to tweak things. They're looking to change things for the better a little bit, but they're not looking to completely just wipe the monopoly board off the table and say, let's start from scratch. And that's one of the things I need to remember going into a situation with some unknowns is like, okay, once I make it through to the other side of the situation, the most likely thing is things will have changed a little, but not completely changed to the point that they're recognizable. Where the worst case scenario is always, something super disruptive is about to happen and it's going to completely change my life. And tomorrow's not going to look anything like today. And that it never works out that way. Right. Almost never works out that way. I mean, yeah, short of somebody dying or being severely physically incapacitated or you being your job or your work situation completely changing to the point, not where you just even lose a job. That's like, boom, something happens where I can't even work in this industry anymore. That's so rare that something that big happens to us, but that's immediately where our brain goes whenever the chance of change is even on the horizon. It's always like, okay, this is going to be so big, so disruptive, so whatever. And it almost never is, right?
What's interesting to me is whenever I've taken the time to actually plan for the worst, thinking through it, when I actually start trying to plan to accommodate the worst, I automatically start to think of what's more realistic instead of going, I got to leave the industry forever. Is that really, I know that's the way you feel right now,
Right.
but all right, if I'm going to start planning for that, what am I going to get it? No. And I start to it starts to kind of balance my way back up to, as I'm planning for those worst case scenarios, realizing, okay, the worst case scenario isn't as bad as these random thoughts that are like coming into my mind based on some really strong feelings right now.
Right. Exactly. And on the personal side, it's like, when your spouse or your partner is like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something after work today. It's usually not, I'm taking the kids and moving to another state. It's usually not something that big, but
she just wouldn't tell us. You should just be gone.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the move. But yeah, I think one of the things I wrote in my notes is when it comes to the application of masculinity to the let them theory is, I know I struggle with the idea of the masculine thing to do or what's expected of me in a particular situation because I'm a man is to take control of the situation, where we were just talking about in a professional negotiation, the person who takes the most control doesn't win the negotiation. It's the person who remains the calmest that wins the negotiation. When you're trying to come to a solution that works for all parties concerned, the person that's the most effective at that is usually who goes into it the calmest. And what does that mean? Well, usually that means the person who's most okay with their number two choice is the one who's able to remain the calmest. So like if you go into a negotiation and you're like, okay, number one for me is I get this new job or this new project and things work out great. Number two is through the negotiation process, I find out this job or this project really isn't for me. It doesn't really speak to my skills. And so finding that out in the initial meeting and being able to avoid this project, that's the number two scenario. If you walk into a negotiation with those being your one and two, you're going to come out the winner no matter what happens, because either you find a project that speaks to your strengths and you can excel in it, or you find a project that doesn't speak to your strengths and isn't a good match for you and isn't the way you should be spending the next 6 months or year of your life. So you back off and you exit the negotiation by not taking it on. So either way, you're in a great position because you didn't say, well, the number one thing is I get this project. The number two thing is I don't get this project, so I'm homeless and I lose everything that I value in life. If that's your one and two, you're screwed because you're walking into that where the stakes are so artificially high that you're not going to be able to remain objective, rational, reasonable, confident. All those things go out the window. And so you just take what the world's willing to give you. And good luck. So that's a way I like to look at this, where the masculine option is not to be in control. The masculine option is to be calm. And you can only be calm when you're confident and you're competent and you know that you've got the tools to make everything okay, even when you hit bumps in the road.
And I think one of the biggest factors in staying calm and confident is not trying to fool yourself into a situation that isn't based in reality, is either coming from your own freaking out amygdala, whatever that might look like, or from rose-colored glasses of you getting hyped up from people outside of you.
I was going to say that, people around
and
trying
saying,
to,
oh, it's not that bad. And like if neither of those feel like it's reality for you, that's going to play with your emotional state and your feelings. And then you're not going to feel calm and confident.
Correct.
So the closer you can get to, take all the information in, but figure out a way to kind of meet in the middle, bring that together so that you have a real sense of what reality is, and prove and do things to prove that out, to support your theory on what reality is. If you need to do a little research or whatever that is, so that you go, okay, I think this is what it is, but I'm not sure about it. Yeah, do that research, do a little homework so that you get really solid in your belief. And then you can come to any type of situation knowing what reality is, and you'll have that calmness and confidence, or you'll be a lot more likely to have it, at least, I think.
Yeah, I think that we can't fall into that trap where, if we're in a situation where other people are freaked out, and that can be contagious, where and people who are freaking out, they want other people to freak out too. So they feel like we all want to reinforce this idea of, okay, I understand the depth of what's going on around me and I've got this right. And so I'm freaked out about this. You're freaked out about this too, right, Dan? And we're
social animals.
We try to make it happen that way.
That's the way we work.
Bring people into our freak out so that it verifies to us that we're right to be freaking out about something.
Yeah.
Or if
it's interesting.
And the opposite way can, like, hey, this isn't a big deal, right? We can just adjust to this. And sometimes, it is a big deal. We need to treat it like it's a big deal. But there is some of that bandwagon where we try to, everybody tries to get everybody else around them to see things the same way that they do.
Yeah. And that's dangerous because you don't know how much reality or homework or evidence that other person has to believe that. Right now, maybe they're an expert in that field or whatever. Then, maybe you can take their freaking out or their information with a little bit more weight than somebody just you met on the street. You have no idea what their experience is in the situation, right? That's a big difference there. But try to get that input and that information from multiple sources, and not just from people who also could be getting their influence from a freak out.
Exactly.
From their own amygdala freaking out.
Yeah. And that's right. That's what I'm sure we've both seen good leaders do that, where it's like, okay, look, I understand you're stressed. You think this is an emergency and you know this pretty well. So I do appreciate your judgment and your experience. But if I start freaking out with you, that's not going to make things any better.
Oh, no.
So I can acknowledge that this is a serious situation and that you're taking it seriously, but I'll be the one that takes a step back and remains calm so that you can have your freak out, and I can use the fact that you're freaking out to help me get to the right decision, but I'm not going to freak out with you.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way of looking at masculinity in this context.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of what I would say our job is in those situations, is to say, hey, look, I can appreciate and acknowledge that you're freaking out right now. And I can also say the fact that you're freaking out probably means that there's something really serious happening that needs to be addressed. I'm not going to freak out with you. I'm going to try to remain as calm as I can. So that gives you space to freak out and it gives me space to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's not the stereotypical version of Stoicism where you don't care and you're putting up a wall.
No,
so you're not even taking into consideration what those, what those feelings are. It's understanding them, taking them in, and then doing something productive with that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the goal. That's the kind of person I want to be. The kind of leader I want to be, the kind of partner I want to be. I want to be able to say, okay, I see how this is affecting you, and that's valuable information to me, and I'm going to treat it as such, but we're not both going to freak out, because if we're both freaking out, then what are we doing? Looking for some third person to not freak out?
Right. Yeah. And then you're not providing any value to the situation.
Exactly,
right. And I think it's another piece of it too, I think that is kind of overlooked a lot, is in terms of being masculine, is what kind of value are you bringing to any situation?
Yeah. Yeah. And in most cases, I think what the world is looking for from men is calm and competence and certainty when certainty is possible. But it's just the rough thing is when you try to bring the fake version of any of those things to a situation and you just can make it worse.
Yeah.
And that we see that in relationships and friend groups and politics all the time. When somebody tries to bring a fake version of competence or confidence or certainty to a situation, when they don't really have it, the whole thing spirals out of control.
And even if we can't identify it with words, our gut instincts,
yes, exactly,
will be like, there's just something not right. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something not right about that person, because you can see that they're not being authentic. And again, it's the further you drift from what authenticity, and to me that means having a foundation in reality.
Yep.
The more you're like, ugh, this isn't right. What else? And then your mind goes, well, what else isn't right?
Exactly.
Like this one situation might be a minor thing, but now you've kind of lost confidence and trust when it's going to come to other things, which could be more important. And now that's not a good relationship foundation, right?
Yeah. I think of people that I've seen and dealt with where just given whatever the situation was, they were trying too hard to look like they were the go-to person. And it's like, you're the go-to person in this scenario. He's the calm one. He's not the one trying to convince everybody that he's the go-to person. And it can be counterintuitive sometimes, but it's like, yeah, the one who is behaving as if this isn't a big deal because he's been there before, he's dealt with it before. That's the one that's going to calm me down and make me feel like, okay, this situation is in hand, not the person who's grabbing by the shoulders and shaking me and telling me how in control of the situation he is. You know what I mean? All right, I think we can stop there for now. Let's see. What's the next topic in our agenda here?
I think it's living for other people's opinions.
That's right. And that's, again, the applications and the implications to modern masculinity are huge, because that is, so many guys are out there living their lives based on what they want other people to think about them. And they're not focusing on what they really are, but just their image. And as a result, I mean, that can work perfectly when things are really smooth and easy. But then when something rough happens, it's like, oh no, now he's revealed himself as what he really is, and I don't like it anymore.
And that's when you need the most, right?
Exactly. So. All right. Thanks, Dan. We'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for this episode of Mindfully Masculine. If you found yourself breathing easier or questioning your entire approach to stress and control, good. That's the point. Follow the show so you don't miss whatever uncomfortable truth we stumble into next. We'll be back soon with more clarity, more sarcasm, and fewer amygdala hijackings. Probably.